Now available in paperback and Kindle Unlimited, The Man Crisis. Learn why so many men are struggling to find their way in an increasingly gynocentric world in The Man Crisis. Get your copy of The Man Crisis in paperback and Kindle Unlimited today. This morning we had another mass shooting at this bar in Thousand Oaks, California. And while I don't have enough information to make a video regarding the mass shooting that transpired in Thousand Oaks, California, I do have enough information to talk about the mass shooting that transpired in Tallahassee, Florida at a hot yoga studio. And after doing my research on the mass shooting at the Tallahassee hot yoga studio, I can honestly tell you that this is another textbook example of one of these beta males I talk about in my new book, The Man Crisis. And this mass shooter, Scott Bierle, is a textbook beta male once you look at his pattern of behavior and you look at his background. And this Scott Bierle, he decided he wanted to go into this Tallahassee hot yoga studio to murder people, all because he couldn't get the attention of women he wanted to get the attention of, and he couldn't get an opportunity to have sex with the women he wanted to have sex with. And this was his motive for participating in this mass shooting that led to the murder of 2 women and the wounding of several others before your Scott Bierle decided to take his life. And before your Scott Bierle decided to participate in this mass shooting, he was clearly showing signs of the sexual frustration I talk about regarding these beta males in my book, The Man Crisis. And that sexual frustration that these beta males have is due to their sexual miseducation they have received in places like that single mother household many of these beta males are raised in, and the media many of these beta males imbibe, like many of these Hollywood movies and pornography. And because these beta males oftentimes get most of their ideas regarding relationships from movies and TV and pornography, this leads to the beta male having a very rose-colored view regarding relationships between men and women. And in that rose-colored view, everything is extremely distorted. Now, the beta male believes that it's the women that are denying him an opportunity at having relationships with them, but in most cases, it's the beta male's perception of women and his lack of social skills that prevent him from being able to capitalize on opportunities at relationships with women. And that's what leads to the foundation for their sexual frustration and the foundation for their anger. Because your Scott Bierle was one of these incels, one of these men who says he is involuntarily celibate due to to women not paying him any attention or making any efforts to offer him opportunities at sex. But again, this is all due to his sexual miseducation and his inability to have any sort of understanding of the social interactions between men and women, because he was never taught a complete set of social skills. Because as it relates to many of these so-called incels, most of these men have no real social skills. And when you look at Scott Bierle's criminal behavior, it shows that this man, even though he had a college degree and did time in the military, clearly had not learned any sort of social skills regarding interactions between men and women in the time he was either in college or in the U.S. military. Because your Scott Bierle in the past, before he participated in this mass shooting, had been arrested for assaulting several women in a sexual way. In one incident, he was grabbing women's butts on the college campus, and in another, he was trespassing on the campus, following women around. And this Scott Bjorley also was terminated from his job as a teacher for inappropriately touching one of the students. So he clearly had a pattern of behavior that showed not only his sexual frustration, but his increasing sexual deviancy. And this is another thing I talk about in the man crisis regarding a lot of these beta males, is that because, again, they do not have a proper set of social skills, what they do is, because they're sexually frustrated, they go out here and participate in inappropriate behavior because they believe that they have to do anything to get women's attention, not understanding that the behavior they're participating in is creepy. And this is the word that many of these women who worked around Scott Bjorley or lived around Scott Bjorley used to describe this man when they were in his presence. The first thing they said about your Scott Bjorley was, this man is creepy, this man is just, he creeps them out. And when I look at his picture, again, I saw a picture of a man who I really wouldn't want to approach or wouldn't want to be around. And again, his behavior was the thing that wound up creeping out women, and the energy he radiated creeped out women. And this is where he just didn't understand where things were going wrong with him. He thought he was perfectly fine, like a lot of incels believe, but a lot of the behaviors they participate in are the things that turn women off. And this fuels their sexual frustration, and it leads to them going out here and doing things like your Scott Bjorley participated in, like making YouTube videos where he called women B's and H's and expressed extreme hatred for women. And that hatred for women, he was inspired by the supreme gentleman, Elliot Rodger, the mass shooter who participated in the La Isla Vista massacre. Now, a lot of these incels admire this Elliot Rodger, like your Scott Bjorley did, and the man in Canada who took out a van and ran it into a group of people on the street because he couldn't get the attention of women. But what these beta males just don't understand is that Elliot Rodger is no one you should want to admire, because your Elliot Rodger was someone who was deeply troubled, and your Elliot Rodger was someone who just did not like them, did not understand how to navigate social situations. Now, your Elliot Rodger, he was one of these sexually frustrated beta males, and again, he was sexually frustrated and angry, just like your Scott Bjorley is, because your Elliot Rodger thought that the only way he could graduate to manhood was if he had a sexual relationship with a woman. And he believed that women were denying him an opportunity to graduate into manhood by denying him an opportunity at sex. And again, this is why these men hated these women. But that anger at women, again, is misdirected, because no woman should define a man's manhood. A man's manhood is defined by God, and he is a man because God made him a man. And that's what makes him a man. And this is what the beta male doesn't understand, because the beta male has been raised primarily by women and has been raised to submit to female authority figures. And he believes that it's women who define his manhood, and it's women who will define his manhood by going out here to have sex with him. And he believes once he has sex with that woman, that will make him a man. This is an idea that has been reinforced over the last 35, 40 years in many films and television shows and things like teen movies and even things like pornography. So the beta male sits there and he imbibes this media. He believes that this idea is the truth and is the gospel truth, and he decides that if this is the way he will graduate into manhood. And it's something that he wants more than life itself, because the beta male wants to do something that will define him as a man. Unfortunately, what he's trying to define as a man is defining his manhood through women, and that's what leads to this beta male becoming this sexually frustrated man who participates in sexually deviant and sexually criminal behaviors like your Scott Biarley did, like grabbing these women and breaking boundaries like your Scott Biarley did by grabbing these women's butts in one incident, following women around on a campus like your Scott Biarley did, or doing things like putting their job at risk like your Scott Biarley did when he inappropriately touched a teenage girl, or going out here to participate in a mass shooting like your Scott Biarley did, because these beta males, again, they define their manhood by women, and again, that's where the beta male winds up in the most crisis, because he doesn't have an understanding of what it means to be a man from men, and because they don't have an understanding of what it means to be a man by a man's standard, this is what leads to the beta male becoming, again, a very frustrated man, a very angry man, and a very miseducated man, because it's that miseducation he gets from women that leads to him being this angry man who believes that he has to go out here and destroy the lives of other women and men because he cannot graduate to the imaginary standard of manhood created by Madison Avenue advertisers, Hollywood movie studios, and pornography studios, which tell him that he needs to be a man, all because he by a woman's standard. And this is the standard that is leading to many of these mass shooters out here participating in these horrific acts of violence, and many of these men out here participating in a spectrum of violent behaviors. Now, this incident with the Scott Biarley, again, is just one of many in the spectrum of violent behaviors that these beta males participate in, because these beta males can participate in anything from a screaming fit to going out here to slapping a woman, to going out here to rape a woman, to going out here to beating a woman to death, to going out here and doing things like participating in these mass shootings. And people need to understand that as it relates to this beta male, any behavior these guys participate in is violent, because when these guys can't get the attention of the women they want, this is what sets them off. And the whole incel is just another one of these beta males. And these beta males, again, participate in these acts of violence because they just have not been taught the life skills that a man needs to be taught, because in most cases, these guys have learned most of these female life skills, and they're expecting women to pay attention to them the same way another woman would pay attention to them, and then wondering why they cannot make relationships work. And the big problem with the beta male is he has never been taught male life skills, male social skills, male survival skills, and because he has not been taught male life skills, male social skills, and male survival skills, this is why he is angry, this is why he is frustrated, and this is why he simmers and boils in anger for years before eventually exploding in a rage, where he winds up participating in a spectrum of extremely violent behaviors that wind up not only destroying his life, but winding up destroying the lives of others. And in order to prevent these males from harming other people, we really need to take a critical look at the way we are raising males, because it is not guns that are causing these beta males to participate in their violent behavior like Scott Biarley had done. We clearly see that because he was already escalating his behavior from sexual assaults to murder, and we see that from his pattern of his behavior, because if we look at Scott Biarley's pattern, we see that he was already starting to participate in those sexually deviant and sexually violent behaviors, like going out here grabbing a woman's butt, or going out here and inappropriately touching teenage girls, or following girls on college campuses. And it's that behavior that already shows us that this beta male has already started breaking the boundaries and is already starting to participate in sexually criminal behavior. And that sexually criminal behavior is the thing that makes him started to show that he was starting to become a dangerous individual. However, most people will start sitting there arguing about gun control, but when we really need to start looking at this man crisis, and as we look at this man crisis, we really have to take a critical look at the way we are raising males, because almost every day we are having some incident with these beta males participating in some act of violence, and almost every week or every other week we have one of these beta males participating in one of these mass shootings. And the reason why these beta males are participating in these mass shootings, again, has nothing to do with guns. It clearly has to do with the way we are raising males. And these males are angry because they just don't know how to make the world work for them, because they have been raised with male life skills, not male life skills, but female life skills. And because they have female life skills, they don't know how to work in the world of men, or how to navigate a course in the world of men that will enable them to survive and function the way a man does. And until we start really looking at the way we raise males, sadly, I'm going to be making more of these videos talking about mass shooters, because we're not really dealing with the problem. We're just dancing around it. And sadly, as most Americans dance around the problem, many innocent people are going to sadly keep losing their lives in incidents that these beta males continue to participate in. If you want to learn about the dysfunctional behavior of beta males and how to deal with the dysfunctional behavior of beta males, you can pick up my new book, The Man Crisis, in paperback and ebook. And in that book you will learn about incels, you will learn about the sexual frustration of the beta male, the sexual deviancy of the beta male, and the violence that these beta males participate in, and the patterns of violence that these men participate in. And you will also learn about how to deal with these beta males in a constructive manner. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe.